Almost time. Yeah, thank you, Art. I'm excited. I'm glad you're here. I think we've all had seen some shady agencies, maybe. Okay, we have a few more people joining us, and we're going to start right at 2 o'clock. I'm sure we have some people that may, like me, when I attend webinars, come right on time. And that's okay. We'll have the recording and we'll put this up on the website afterwards. And you might even see some things on social media. So we'll see. I'm going to try not to be too ranty. I think whenever we talk about shady agencies, I get ranty. So I'll try to keep it on subject today. But thank you all for joining us. Again, if you have questions ahead of time or throughout the webinar today, go ahead and put those in the chat. I'll be monitoring that, as well as some of the content journey team will be paying attention to that. And so we'll just get to those, whether it be in the middle of the webinar or even at the end. Okay, so we're right at 2 o'clock. We're going to get started and make good use of everybody's time. And like I said, sometimes I rant about shady agencies. And so we might just get through this really quickly once we get going. But for those of you who don't know me, my name is Lindsey Miller. I'm the lead guide over at Content Journey. And today we're going to talk about how to know if you're working with a shady agency. For anyone who's out there working with any type of client, I find that 80 to 90% of the people that come into my doors, so to speak, or send an email or jump on a Zoom call are coming here because they've been burned by another marketing agency or things aren't going well. And it's not always results driven of why they're unhappy, or I said lack of results driven that they're unhappy. But there are a lot of red flags that I've started hearing from people. And I think it's one of the things that we do differently at Content Journey. And that's why we're talking about it today. So first, we're just going to talk about some of those red flags. What are the things that we hear about from potential clients or even current clients that tell us stories? And what can we look out for, either if you're in the market for a marketing agency or you are a marketing agency and you want to do just a little bit better? So first off is, I say it's a red flag if you don't have access to your own data. That means Google Analytics, Search Console, or even your ads account. Now, I know there are some agencies out there that make an argument, if you will, that they set up the Google Analytics account on your behalf and they're going to send you reports, and therefore they own that data and not you. I disagree entirely. I think there's nothing more important to our businesses than data. And I don't care what industry you're in. I don't care about any of it. Your data on your website or your social media account or whatever it happens to be belongs to you and belongs to your business, no matter who you're bringing in to manage it for a short time. So if you right now do not have access to your Google Analytics account and you're not the owner or super admin of those things, change that immediately. We're going to talk a little bit about bad breakups and then this webinar as well. And this is one of the things that always goes wrong. We literally have a brand new client that started with us in January of this year, and their old agency wouldn't let go of their data, and they were basically held hostage, lose 8 years of data to this agency that wouldn't turn it over or move to somebody else. And that's a really hard choice, really, at the end of the day. So go ahead and make sure that you own your data. And if anyone's keeping it from you, then they're a shady agency. Next red flag is you don't have admin access to your own website. Obviously, I've spent a lot of time in the WordPress space, and so we call this admin. If you're in Joomla or Drupal or Squarespace or any of those other spaces, it applies exactly the same. You should have access to your website. Just because you've paid somebody else to create the website or you contract with somebody to help you with the content on the website, at the end of the day, doesn't mean it doesn't belong to you. I will say, if you don't know what you're doing whenever it comes to updating your plugins or creating backups and those kinds of things, go ahead and make a promise to yourself not to do that. Um, just because you have admin access doesn't mean you need to be pushing all of the buttons. And that may be one of the reasons why agencies from time to time limit access to clients. But at the end of the day, it's your website, it's your property, and you should have access to all of the things within the website. Just in case you want to see something or you have questions, you should be able to go and look at that on your own. Our next red flag is promises and guarantees. So I know this sounds really weird because people love to be like, well, can't you guarantee that you're going to, send 1,000 people to my website within 30 days of working with you? And the answer to that should always be no. Like, we can't guarantee. I feel confident in my work and the processes that we've created at Content Journey. And given time, SEO done the right way and content will always increase your traffic. I've never seen it not, but I can't guarantee that it will. And I can't promise by when. So sure, for sales and marketing, 30-day money back guarantee, like all of those things sound great. And also when we're investing in something, we want to know that without a shadow of doubt, it's going to work within a certain time frame. But that's just not how the organic search works. It's also not even like how ads work. So even if you're working with an agency on advertising, you can't guarantee or promise something. So if you talk to an agency and they are trying to close the sale so badly that they are making a promise about a certain amount of traffic or leads that are going to be generated from any of these types of efforts, then you might want to shy away from them. Because if they are making those guarantees, at the end of the day, you might be really disappointed, which is what we try not to do. Okay, so those are my first big red flags. There's probably more, but we don't have hours today. So we're going to talk next about how to break up. So granted, this is our month of love, and so we want to talk about making connections and having strong relationships, but also how we start the relationship is really important, and also how we end the relationship. So both of those things should be considerations when we talk about entering into any type of contract with an agency. And if you have found that you've seen those red flags in your agency and you need to break up, then here are our tips. So first, I hope you have a contract. Honestly, it protects both sides. I also tend to be a little bit contracted first sometimes. It feels like an extra headache to create a contract. And especially when you're starting a relationship, you don't want to be like, oh yeah, this is so great. We are getting along so well. And please sign all of this paperwork now before we can continue. But I find that it really does protect both sides. We have clear expectations of what deliverables will be. And then also contracts tell us how to break up. They let us know if there's a 30-day notice that's required, which is part of Content Journeys. We require a 30-day notice because we work so far in advance. We like to have 30 days so that we can make good use of our work and that time isn't wasted. It's not just because we want to get an additional payment or keep you from leaving. There are real reasons why we have a 30-day notice in our own contracts. And so review your contract if you have one, and hopefully you do. If you want to break up with your agency, and see what those terms are and see what your responsibilities are outlined in your contract. If you don't have one, email me, Lindsey@contentjourney.com, and I'll send you a template that a friend shared with me whenever we started in 2020. Next, so this is a quote that comes from one of my many mentors, Joe Osterling, who's the CTO over at Liquid Web. And he says, our success is only limited by the amount of difficult conversations we are willing to have. I use this in all aspects of my life, but I think this is really important in an agency client relationship as well, because sometimes we have to come to the table and have really difficult, vulnerable conversations about things that are going wrong or expectations that are not being met. It does sound much like a romantic relationship when we talk about it like that, but it's true. There are clients who have let me down, and I'm sure, I hope there haven't been a lot, but maybe there have also been clients that I've let down. And so having those really tough, open conversations is really going to help make sure that we're succeeding. And so you may feel like you're heading for a breakup and talk to your agency and have that open, honest, vulnerable conversation, difficult conversation, and find that your relationship is better afterwards. So have the difficult talk, and maybe you'll find yourself actually not breaking up with your agency. Maybe you'll help them not be so shady. And then last on breaking up is just be upfront and honest about why you're ending the relationship. Talk to them exactly about what went wrong, why you feel like you need to find somebody else to engage with for your marketing, or whatever other agency you might be working with. I think that for me, if a client were to break up with me, I'd want to know the truth. I'd want to know why they're choosing somebody else, because that gives me an opportunity to be better. If and also like just work on myself, work on my own business. And so if you cared about this agency enough or liked them enough to enter into the relationship at the beginning, then going ahead and continuing through this conversation and telling them exactly why you're leaving, it's going to be better for you, because you're going to be able to really know what you expect in your next agency relationship, as well as letting them know why you left, and maybe they can be better for other people. I talk a lot about being good stewards in the world on the websites, talking about accessibility and things like that. And this is an extension of that, of just being good people. And just because we're breaking up doesn't mean that we still don't like a client or the client doesn't like us. And so we can still continue to help each other do great and do better in the future. So finally, like, what makes a good agency? I'm not going to pretend like Content Journey does everything 100% perfect. Every single person makes mistakes. We all do. But we can continue to try our best to be good, like I said, stewards of the internet and stewards of our clients. What we say here is that we really want to make sure that our client success is first. And so we don't necessarily celebrate getting a new client. Like, sure, that's a great thing to happen for any agency, is to continue to grow your business. But what we do celebrate is whenever they hit their milestones. So Taylor, our customer success manager over here, she is making sure that she knows like when timelines are met, when success is reached on the client side, and then she might be sending a card. It might be a quick email or a phone call or whatever that happens to be, to let them know like, hey, we just reached this milestone. That's for you. And I think that's really important, is finding an agency that's actually caring more about your success than their own success. Also, what makes a good agency is you want them to be knowledgeable. I know that sounds really silly, but I think a lot of times we feel like marketing is magic. Like I said, a lot of our clients are coming from bad relationships and coming from shadencies, like we call it. And so if they're coming from one of these shadencies and they're not explaining SEO, or they're not explaining their process, and they're not willing to open the curtain, so to speak, and to show what's happening behind the scene, then that's something to look out for. So you want to make sure that your agency isn't using fluff. They're not just using a lot of buzzwords or making it sound like it's over your head. Kenna, our content director, actually taught me this whenever we're talking about simplifying blog posts so that anyone can read. It's something we talk about a lot. We imagine we have to use lots of big words, but really Google needs us, and humans reading our posts need us to read small words. And she explained it in this way, and I've used it over and over and over again, where we show true expertise when we can take our very, very complicated topics of expertise and simplify it so much that anyone can understand. And so you want to know that you're working with a good agency. That's a way to see, are they able to explain their work and their processes in a way that you understand exactly what they're doing for you, what they're delivering, and how they're delivering it. If they're telling you it's too complicated, you'd never possibly know what's happening, but just trust us, then that's probably not going to be somebody that you're going to want to put your investment with. And so find somebody that's knowledgeable, that doesn't use a lot of fluff, and that doesn't make it feel like they're magicians, because it's marketing really is just process, planning, research, and execution, more than it is getting lucky or having magic tricks. And this is an extension of that, excuse me. Good agencies take their time to explain their process. If any client comes to me, I tell them exactly what we do. I talk about how we recruit our writers. I talk about how we go through our editorial process or quality control and brief writing, and all of, like, I answer all of the questions, probably too many sometimes, because I get a little bit in the weeds and detailed about our processes because I love them so much. But you should be able to. So good agencies are going to say exactly what they're doing and how they're doing it so that you feel comfortable with your investment with them. And so again, it's no magic. Next is transparency. So one of the things that we do at Content Journey is we send a report every single month, and we are very transparent and honest when things aren't working out like we expect them to. There have been a couple of reports that haven't been fun to send to clients to let them know that a piece of content that had previously been going very well and bringing in thousands of site visitors a month all of a sudden dropped, and we had to go figure out why. And so sending that and being transparent about when things actually don't work out is just as important as celebrating wins. One of the things I saw from a client that we don't do all of their work with, we just do some of their content and SEO with, they'd gotten an ads report from their vendor or their other agency partner, and it looked so good. Like as soon as you look at it, you're like looking at all these numbers and you're looking at the words, you're like, oh my gosh, like this ads campaign was incredible. But then I went into Google Analytics just to kind of look at, not to test them by any means, but just to compare what they were seeing with their ads with what I was seeing with content, because I wanted to see if there was a way that we could work together, maybe send some of their ads to our content or whatever, all for the betterment of the client. And as soon as I dug in, I saw that they had wiggled around a little bit on some of their dates and some of the report to make it look really good, when in fact, it wasn't really as productive as they were making it out to be. So being transparent is really important. I've never lost a client because I was honest with them and transparent about what wasn't working. That's never happened. And I feel really confident and good about myself too, because then we can work together and be like, okay, this didn't work. How can we make it work next time? Or what can we change to make it work better? And it all begins with just being open, honest, and transparent. Next, a good agency is going to be aligned with your goals. So like I said here, we definitely focus on our clients' success, but it's also your goals. Like, what are you actually looking for? In our onboarding calls, we start with like, what are you here for? Are you needing more like direct sales, an assisted sales, somebody to reach out to your team, sign up for a newsletter list, or just increase your traffic? Like, what are your goals? And then we align with those. The last thing you want is to hire an agency and them come in and tell you that your business goals aren't worthwhile or you're not thinking about it correctly. I'm pretty sure if you're interviewing for agencies, you know what you're trying to accomplish. And so you want to find somebody that doesn't talk you out of those accomplishments or out of those goals. You want to find an agency that is going to align with you, and work with your goals and not create their own. And then finally, making a good agency is consistency. So they do what they say they will, which is a novel concept. I don't think it should be, but I think it is. We actually had a client recently. He's found his niche in person networking and has taken his website down. And so he was ending his relationship with us, and not in a bad way. He just changed his stuff. And in his breakup email or conversation, it was, I'm so glad that I finally found a marketing company that was going to do what they say they would. And it was the best breakup email I've ever gotten. But that's nice, right? Is because we want to be consistent. We want to deliver on the things that we say we will, which is also goes back to not making promises or guarantees. And we follow through and we stay consistent. And so there are other great agencies out there that do the exact same thing. And I think that is an important part of identifying what a good agency is because they actually say the thing and then follow through with it. Okay, this is my favorite part of this this talk is creating a strong relationship. And like, how do you, no matter if your agency is a shadency or not, but how are you creating a strong relationship? And I think this probably goes more than just client agency relationship, but is probably applicable in a lot of different ways. But start with clear goals for your business. We've had clients come in and go, well, what do you think our goals should be? And that puts us in a weird place because we don't know what their conversion rate is. We don't know, like, we're not looking at their financial outlook or their 1 year or 3 year or 5 year goals. And so when they come to us and they want us to choose where their digital marketing, like, KPIs or key performance indicators should be, it's not super great. It worries me sometimes if they have clients coming in without their own goals, because like, how are we going to measure our success or their success if we're setting where the goalposts go? It doesn't feel probably fair to them. They should be setting the goalposts and we should be trying to meet them there. Although sometimes it can happen in a more collaborative way, but I think starting with very clear goals for your business and the results that you're wanting to see or are really important to starting the relationship the right way. Moving those around throughout, whether that be on the agency side or the client side, is really setting us up to not have a successful relationship. Next, you need to make sure that the pricing agrees with your budget. Something that can really create an unequal relationship is if we have a client who's coming in and maybe they're pushing their budget further than they really, really want to. It puts them in a weaker place of letting the process work, especially for, SEO and content specifically. There are no overnight successes. There may not even be 30-day or 60-day successes. And so when that happens and somebody is pushing their budget a little bit too far and making them uncomfortable, it probably isn't a good place to have a really strong relationship, because they're going to question everything. They're going to want those guarantees. They're going to want everything to work right away. And that's just not how content marketing works. I'd probably argue that even, social media marketing would be the exact same, where you can't push yourself so much in an uncomfortable way that you just have to have those results in a really fast time frame. And so when you start out your relationship with your agency, make sure that you have found somebody that has a price point that agrees with your budget and is in a comfortable space for you to give you the time that you need for it to work. Next, spend significant time on the front end. So one of the things we tell people in our client meetings is when you get your first pieces of content, we expect you to sort of, edit them to death. Make sure that it matches your voice. Make sure that there aren't words in there that don't align with your business or how you use them. There's so many examples of this, in the martial arts field. I'm still going to say it wrong, but it's like teacher, and so there's so many nuances there. And now I'm trying to even think what my example is. Yeah. Anyway, there's a lot of these. Like tattoo artist, for example, you say artist instead of tattooist. And so we learn these things on the front end of the relationship. To not take the time to correct that kind of word usage or learn about the voice at the very front will just take you down a path of not feeling satisfied with your agency. So spend significant time on the front end to make sure there are, clear goals and language issues and vernacular and the Oxford comma usage. All of these things are really, really important to know. And especially with us, and I'm sure others as well, the non-shadencies out there, if we're going to learn it, and then you're not going to have to keep reminding us. And then so the more time you spend on the front end, that means for the rest of the relationship, you get to sit back and enjoy your effort that you spent with us in the first month or two. Okay, that's it. So we talked about red flags. So no guarantees, making sure you have access to your data, that you are still owner and admin on your own website. We talked about having a good breakup, which starts basically with contracts and clear expectations. We also talked a little bit about the right type of agency, what makes a good agency. So aligning with your goals, making sure there's transparency in the relationship, meaning when it doesn't work out, they need to tell you and be honest with you. Where good agencies are taking the time to explain their process, or letting you know it's not magic. And then finally, making sure that you have creating a really strong relationship. So, starting again with clear goals and expectations for your own business, what you're wanting, help you making sure that agency is aligned, taking time to get to know each other on the front end, and spending significant time offering feedback at the beginning of the relationship so it carries over through the rest. So let's look at the chat for a couple of questions. Here's where you can find Content Journey online. Twitter is my personal Twitter, but we do a lot of Content Journey talk there. And so I hope you follow us on social media. Okay, so here's one question. So how often do you see a bad agency fit work out? Oh, this is fun. If I think I may be with a bad agency, should I just plan to move on? So this goes back to the hard conversations, honestly. Just because you think you're with a bad agency doesn't mean that you should immediately cut ties, unless you're at this webinar listening to this conversation because you already had a bad feeling. But you may be able to talk those things out. I know that I always want to do better. And so I would hope that clients would talk to me if they were upset about something or had a different expectation, and allow me to correct that. But if you feel like there are just every red flag in the book, and you have unmet expectations, and you don't have access to any of your data, which is like probably my biggest red flag ever, then maybe it's time to go look at your contract and consider breaking up. I know, but it's up to you. It depends on that relationship. It's also why we like to create really strong relationships with our clients at Content Journey. So hopefully they will talk to us. Okay, so here's another question. If my agency refuses to give me access to my data, is there anything else I can do, or is it just lost to me? Oh gosh, very good question. You could talk to Google and go through their customer support and get access back to your analytics. We recently did this with our client, and we tried everything we possibly could for a little over a month and couldn't get their data back. So I really do think if they were refusing, you could, talk to a lawyer friend or review your contract and make sure that it talks about who the data is owning, or who owns the data, and try to go through Google support. But honestly, the lost data is it hurts my stomach thinking about it. So it's like anything you can do to avoid that, I think is worth it. Whether that be talking to the agency, talking to a lawyer to send them some type of letter, or even offering to pay an additional 30 days, or something to retain that access, or go ahead and get access now if you think there's any chance later of ending that relationship. So we actually went almost exactly 30 minutes. I love whenever I make a promise that I actually get to keep. Not very often do I talk for less than 30 minutes. I'm going to leave it open for just a few more minutes to see if there are any questions that come through. But thank you for joining me today. And there will be a replay of this sent to everyone who registered. So if you want to watch it again, and I'm sure we'll put it up on our blog as well. So thank you so much for joining me, and stay away from the shadencies. Okay, I don't see any more questions. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end our webinar then. All right, see y'all next time.